Hello. How fun is this to be able to spend time together here on the You've Got Nurse Series podcast? This is a place to explore practical ways to improve our health, which heightens our life experience. I invite you to join in with an open heart and an open mind to receive our guest today. I am delighted to welcome you here, Jean. Oh my gosh, what a treat. And welcome to all of you. I want to introduce you to Jean Worth. Jean is a transformational counselor, a certified healing practitioner, and a biofeedback specialist, and more. So, Jean, I want you to further introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about where you started out and how you got to where you are today.
Okay, I started out at RIT as an art major and the first hearing person in the Deaf Drama Club. So then I got involved as a certified interpreter and acting in theater and spent years around the world doing all that. And then I went from there to getting my master's in education at NYU and traveled again off to Venice for a semester here, there, and everywhere. And then from there, I went to California for a year at the International Institute of Hand Analysis. And from there, I got into biofeedback, and it goes on and on and on. The list is very long. But point being, everything for me was about self-discovery, and I love problem solving. I love analysis. I love pictures. I love patterns. And everything I've learned, even including the human design and the hand analysis and the biofeedback, everything I've learned has all been emotional, physical, spiritual, problem solving,
Yes.
and understanding myself, my consciousness better. So I guess you could say I've put 45 years together of all the different careers I've had, but they've all had the same thing. Who am I and who are you? And how are we working in this world? And how can we have a wonderful time, but at the same time, not be irresponsible? So I've always had a consciousness of, what can I learn from this? What can I do here? How can I improve that? Not that I was dissatisfied. It's just my consciousness kept growing and I kept looking at things differently. Then I put things together. And then I started helping people with all my different experiences and knowledge. And life doesn't get much better than that for me.
Which is so
in a nutshell.
And it's a big nutshell, which is
it's a huge nutshell.
Right? And I love it. Yeah, I love it. And I recognize myself in part of that as well, which is, it's a circuitous route and not a straight arrow, right?
No.
And as we go along, we gather so much wisdom from things.
Yeah.
And we allow ourselves to become what I refer to as a more conscious contributor.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And so much is very much about systems too. And so I have a surprise for you, because what I did is I went to my filing cabinet and I drew out.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. From 2018. Goodness. Okay. This is a bit ago. And one that you did for me. And I want people to have an idea and tell them a little bit more about hand analysis.
All right. Okay. So put that down just 1 second.
Yeah.
Because I want to talk for a second before we look at the hand. The hand analysis, again, I just absolutely loved it as a system for self-discovery. I will say this. How did somebody, a nice girl from upstate New York, end up reading hands all over the world? And I can tell you it wasn't in my game plan, but I went to this lecture one night from a friend of mine who said, you've got to come hear this guy talk. And so I went, I don't want to learn about reading hands. I'm not interested in hand reading. Futures, ew. So anyway, I went, but his whole premise was, before you're born, 5 months prior to birth, the fingerprints, the dermatic lifts are formed on the fetus. And in the system he teaches, it's your soul agenda reading. It's why are you on earth? Where are your greatest gifts? And are you using them? Are you enjoying your life with them? Or are there some blocks along the way? Because we all have the strengths and we all have the challenge. Mm-hmm. So in this pattern that I learned, I get to tell everybody, which I love doing, what their strengths and their greatest gifts are and the life they were born to live. And if they're not, and someone will say, well, that's not me, you're really wrong. No, I just have to explain where the challenge shows up and what that commitment in this lifetime is about, of what you're working on for you. So for me, this was like, God, God on the Prince, and it was just so amazing. And I just adored doing it. And I did it all over the world. And I still do it. And I still love it. So now let me look at your hand. I just had to say what it was about a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. Now this was you how many years ago?
This was in December of 2018.
All right. So two things I'm looking at. And what we have here is we have an extremely long headline, which is the longest line cutting across your palm. The longer something is, the more time you spend in that element or direction. So this tells me you spend it, and it's in your headline is a little more, it's a little flatter, it's a little more direct, it's a little more like an engineer. So it's like structure and grounding and building and spending a lot of time with your thoughts. And then I go, okay, so you're a builder and you spend a lot of time preparing and learning and growing in the area of your interest. Now, I'm looking at the heart line, which is right beneath it. And it comes all the way across the hand, but it's got a big curve on the end coming up toward the headline. So what does that tell me? That tells me you spend just as much time feeling about what you feel as you do thinking about what you think. So you have a tremendous amount of energy that goes into your emotions and a tremendous amount of time and energy into your thoughts. But with that little curve at the end, it tells me that sometimes you overthink how somebody's going to respond, and you might not just put it out there, just not express what it is you feel. You might worry that it's not going to be acceptable or it's not going to be right. So you hold back a little bit on the release of your emotional power or the emotional expression. And then I'm looking at the finger that goes right at the end with the first finger, your index finger, and it curls away from your thumb. It bends away a little bit. So back in the day when you were just building your business, it wasn't as easy for you to take your power, be straight out there, put out who you are, because you were growing and you were building, and you didn't enjoy necessarily meeting resistance. So you weren't maybe 100% like you are now. But it's just fascinating. So you know what? Let's do another print and show what your hand looks like today. Or take your right hand and hold it up. Let me just see it from here.
Well, this is my left hand.
Oh, that's your left hand. Okay, hold up your left hand. All right, back away a little bit. A little more. Okay, so even if I look at your index finger now, it's much straighter and not curved over as much. Mm-hmm. And your line, I'm going to have to print you and then do it. But it looks like your heart line stops between the index and the middle finger. So I don't see the D fork. But again, this is hard. So I'm going to do a print and look at it.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, it's not so easy to see. But, okay, but that's interesting. Very interesting.
So we'll have to do another one.
Yes, let me take a look at it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And do a comparison, right?
Right. Hold up your right hand for a moment. Okay, now look at your index finger on your right hand. It's straight as an arrow. Mm-hmm. Now, let me see your print of your right hand. No, honey, I'm sorry, the paper print.
Oh, my right hand. Okay.
Uh-huh. All right. Look at your index finger on that paper print. There's a really big curve.
Yeah.
Pull it back a little bit. All right, so it's got a curve on it. Now hold up your right hand next to that. All right, it's straight. It's amazing. So it tells me that you've still got that independent mind and you still have to process and learn, but you're going more forward, and the heart line is very different. It's ending more on the finger. So yep, in these last several years, you've been putting it out there big time. Okay, well, that's just a little tiny thing.
Well, but like, how fun is this, right?
I know. So it says kudos to you because you have been working a long time.
Well, what I really like to do is boil information down into practical applications that people can actually use, right?
Right.
And I think it makes a big difference for people because I think it's imperative that people start to take more responsibility for their health, for their own.
But how does it make How does it make you feel right now knowing that you have done these years of taking responsibility, learning, growing, and then actually seeing paper proof that those issues on taking your power, extending yourself, putting yourself out in the world, doing what you believe in philosophically, all the Jupiterian expansion
Mhm.
has been amazing, obviously.
Well, the thing that's also fascinating is that it makes a difference,
Oh,
right? It makes a difference. And
yes,
the other interesting thing is that after those ink prints were taken, I fell and broke my wrist. And all of those energy lines coming out the ends of
right.
the fingers, they all disappeared,
Because you weren't putting it out there. You
right?
were recovering physically.
Exactly. And when you look, I mean, look at them now, right? I
Yep.
mean, yeah.
Energy lines out the top of your hand.
And it's just like, oh my gosh. And I am just delighted that we're here talking about it, because I think that there are some folks that haven't been exposed to this.
Right.
And it is fascinating. And what's interesting for me is I keep track. I look at my hands and I'm like, oh, my energy lines don't seem to be as strong as they were last week. And what steps can I take
Mm-hmm.
to get that back? Right.
Right. And
Right.
then, too, knowing what your challenge is, like you can just be mad at yourself for 2 minutes, but you could be mad at somebody else for a lifetime. So if you know that something didn't work the way you wanted it to, let's say you've got that Jupiter, this finger, the index, like taking your power, being clear, what is it I want, instead of reacting to somebody. So we can make somebody else wrong forever, but we can say, oh, where I didn't get my purpose met. So where did I not meet my challenge? Oh, I didn't really say exactly what I wanted. I just hoped that this would come.
Hmm.
So then you can say, okay, I got it. I just need to be more clear in what it is I want and communicate that. That's so much easier to get to than he said this or she said that, and it really hurt
Oh
my
my
feelings.
gosh,
And now
yes.
they're gossiping, and I'm not going to talk to them ever again, and I'm breaking up. I mean, how much more wonderful to say, oh, I wasn't clear. That I can deal with.
Hmm.
So it's
Right.
kind of like giving you the keys to the kingdom of every time something doesn't go according to purpose in what you were born to do, you can say, oh, I need to strengthen this area, or I need to learn how to receive better. If I have to ask, I don't want it. What a weird concept. You have to ask.
Well,
So all these things you learn in the hand analysis, and I adore it.
oh, well, I'm a real fan of the hands, let me tell you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I use them as a guide.
Right.
And
The fellow who did this program, Richard Unger, I got certified in 1986. And I went out to California and I was there for most of the year and there was weekend training and it was amazing. And he's just brilliant at what he does. And he's trained people all over the world. And this is a system now that exists pretty much everywhere. And it's really great that mankind, humans, can accept it and begin to do the work of self discovery and consciousness raising and just giving themselves a heads up on how to go through life.
mhm. And what I love about it is that it is absolutely connected to the body mind spirit connection,
That's right.
which I teach as and refer to them as the rules of the game,
Mm-hmm.
because it's imperative that people understand what game they're in, right? And when we're negating certain aspects of ourselves, we're not really in the game, right? And if we don't understand that we're not breathing ourselves and we're not making our hearts beat on our own, and we are part of what I refer to as the universal soup, and we're we broadcast our energy,
Right.
and which is actually evident as these energy lines coming
Right.
out the
Right.
ends of the fingers. And it
Otherwise you
might not be exactly how you would explain it, obviously,
no,
but what's interesting is that
no. But
there are practical applications.
right. You see, either you sit on the sideline like the game you just described, and they're not diving in, they're not playing on the field, they're not risking, they're not growing, they're not taking chances. But life's okay. And I often say to people, you don't have to do this work if it's not. in accordance with you at this time right now. But if you don't do it, you won't have the same life as if you did.
Right, right.
So,
And oh my gosh, there are so many opportunities and fun things to learn about and people to meet and places to go. And, I sound like Dr. Seuss, but you know what I mean.
well, as long as you're on that trajectory of consciousness raising, you can find it everywhere. In how you relate to somebody and how you feel about the day and the choices you're making. And the more you become self-reflective, the easier it is to see when you're getting stuck, when you're not happy, when you're being a victim. And I don't see that as a choice I would want. So I'm always looking for things that help me go to the next phase or step or understanding.
Right. And could you talk to us a little bit also about the biofeedback?
Sure. So I love systems, as you do, and I love puzzles. I'm born on the day of the problem solver. I want to figure, so I observe a lot. So a lot of my time I spend interacting, but the majority of my time I spend in observation and reflection. If I had to be honest, I have to be. Okay. So when it came to the biofeedback, again, things fall into my lap. There's one girl with a hand analysis said, "You have to meet this guy." I didn't want to meet him, but I did. And okay, so she dragged me, and then it changed my world. And then the biofeedback, my best friend from college, she and her mom, quantum biofeedback, the Skio, the Indigo, that's the particular programs I use. And they said, "Oh my God, this machine sounds just like Gene." So they bought it for me. They sent it to me. I spent 6 months training on my own, not realizing if I'd read the directions, I could have seen that there was a scholarship. And I had all these courses that I had to take within the first year. So after I spent 6 months teaching myself, then I really dove in and did it. And then I became the zone manager for Manhattan and had a group that I was teaching. And I've been using this device now, I think close to 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it does the mental, the emotional, the physical, the spiritual. So when I work with somebody, I look at their hands to see what their soul wants to tell me. I look at their hands to see what their personality is saying. Then I hook them up to this device. It sends them 10,000 frequencies 3 times within a couple minutes. Then what comes back are 32 programs, how their body responded to all of these elements. So knowing the hands and then knowing where to go and what they're working on, I go into programs and we get clearer definition. So it's like amazing. And then the last thing I added to my Mary Poppins bag is, wait a minute, human design.
Right.
I was thinking of the biofeedback. Sorry, and I was going to tell you something else, but that can wait. Okay, human design. So in human design, this is an amazing program that I also incorporate. And there's a card or not a card, but a page that says the life you were born to live. So every single person that I work with, I also go into elements of that. It reflects on what's missing in the hands, it's just amazing how it coordinates with everything. So
Right.
one system goes to another system goes to another. So when I do a session, I'll put all 3 together and then I listen a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But even in the human design, it's like the life you're born to live. Okay, I'm here for consciousness. They said, as if you think it's going to make a difference, you get all excited because as soon as you go to this level, you see wider. You go to this level, you see wider. It never ends. So everything shifts and moves and changes, and things work this month that they didn't work next month or last month. So it's just staying present to where you are at, what you're feeling, and then all these systems, which I love to reflect upon. And anything I can do, as it says in the life I'm born to live, I'm just meant to put things down for people to look at. I don't have to change anything. I don't have to judge anything. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. But, here's a little tweak if you'd like it. And it's not even do this and you'll feel that. It's like, this is how you could feel better. This is how you could grow. But then again, it's up to each individual what they can accept and what's the right timing for them. This might not be the right decade to do their growth. Maybe it's the next decade. But I just love being able to give information and ideas. And like the book says, as if you think it's going to make a difference. Well, I do. That's why I do it. But consciousness is a very slow growing thing. And it is going to make a difference. It just takes time.
Well, it does make a difference. And as you just pointed out, it's not an overnight success, so to speak, right?
I
It
get
does take
amnesia on
time.
a regular basis.
Well, I think we all do. I
Yeah,
think that we all do. It's a practice to be as present as we can be, because the only thing that we really have is the present moment,
I
because that
know.
gives us the space to, understand those applications and whatnot, right? But what's interesting is that we do get sidetracked. And
Like,
exactly, exactly. But what I love about all of this, and the point that you make about um, incorporating different modalities and different perspectives, it's important because that's life too.
right.
There's not one person that has one single answer that's the ticket, right?
And luckily, we all think it's the ticket at that moment. So we
Right.
embrace it. And then
Uh-huh.
we learn something and we use what we learn from it. And we slowly build a conglomerate that will be our little satellite to get us the rest of the way.
Exactly, exactly. It's that beautiful saying, one foot in front of the other, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you're in a different dimension, you're in a different modality, you're in a different experience with each step.
Right. That's it.
And being open to those steps and taking the steps
Hmm.
is all part of the equation.
Hmm.
When you talk about or think about easily stepping forward, right? With
Hmm.
confidence and with ease and all of those fabulous sayings that come along with that. And then you think about, well, I went kicking and screaming.
Well, I often say to people, as an example of what you just said, I said, okay, you're on the diving board of life.
Mhm.
You can know that maybe the next action you should take, but it's too hard to do. You think too much, you find something wrong with it, you're not willing to go the distance. But life pushes you off that diving board. You
It
know
does.
what? You get wet. One way you feel lousy and miserable and you didn't grow from the experience and you're still wet. One way you choose to dive empty handed into the void, knowing that it's a move you have to take. Guess
Mhm.
what? You take that action, you take that risk, you complete it. It might not be your forever choice, but you've grown from it. So
Mhm.
one way you can resist and one way you can hurt for a minute and then you grow, or longer, and then you grow from it. So it's, yeah, but not everybody is at the place where they're willing to risk or take action, or it isn't the right time for them. But when the right time comes, as you said, you're open to it, you embrace it, and you add that to your list of tools that work for you.
The
And you have
interest.
a lot of tools. You
Well,
have worked on this a long time, and
I
you have
know.
a business and the sunshine and the this. So you're amazing. So yeah,
Oh,
you're offering a lot.
well, we both are. And I think that's why we have such a regard for each other as well, right?
You're more out there in the bigger picture. I just want to work with one person right now at a time, and then I just go to all these systems, and then I'm so complete. But I think you're more. Let's change the whole world.
Oh, I would love to. Yes. And isn't that so fun, right? The
Yeah,
sunshine quotient. Yep.
yeah.
Yep. It's a direct reflection of your level of vibration. And what are you radiating? What are you broadcasting?
What are you attracting?
And exactly, because what you're broadcasting is all part
Yeah,
of the vibrational world.
yeah.
And the law of attraction is a sub law of the law of vibration that
That's it.
we're all operating in, right? And that's why I think it's important to learn those rules of the game.
And
And
I think if each human could get responsible for the energy they're putting out, or being aware, just being aware, even
yeah.
if they don't want to be responsible, but being aware. And I think like the whole philosophy of all of mankind and what's going on and this and that, I think if every single person could take one day and be responsible for themselves, oh my God, what a change.
Uh-huh.
And that's all the things you teach and all the things I'm interested in, just bringing the awareness to them so they have a choice and
Mhm.
they're not a victim that this is being done to them.
Right.
And even when I work with people and I explain that about your responsibility is to you, your responsibility is to look at what you're putting out there.
Mm-hmm.
And without even that awareness, the responsibility doesn't happen and we continue to blame or victim or suffer.
Right. And I do.
Unless you're completely unconscious, and I say bravo, because you're having fun and you're not aware, but that's okay. I don't judge it. It's like, whoa, I wish I could do that.
That's
No,
really funny.
yes. Because there are people that don't suffer. There are people that are successful. There are people that are, moving the planet along. So it's not like we're all suffering if we don't take the time to do this. Maybe this life, this period they're going through, they have other things.
Mm-hmm. I think there are times that we do become clueless.
Yeah, well, there's that.
Right? But I also, getting back to the self-responsibility of what you're broadcasting, it's a beautiful gauge to be able to use once you understand it, right? And I like to give people the visual often of the emotional energetic scale. And because every thought, word, and action, everything has an energetic value to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you see in the energy lines in the hands. That's what
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
being read, I believe, in the biofeedback.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's right.
right, and I think that it is. If people understand the basics of how they operate, they make much better choices for themselves, don't you think?
I do. It's a consciousness shift that if we focus so much outward and we don't really focus inward to
Mm-hmm.
the same degree that we're focused out there. So we're not thinking, gosh, if I changed or looked at this a little differently
Right.
or looked at the big picture, do I want to be right? Do I want to be happy? You know? And unfortunately, so often is the case where they don't see it as a choice. This had happened to me,
Mm-hmm.
therefore I am this, as opposing to I learned this from here, and now I'm this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's a juggling act.
Well, and also
So,
offering the concept that each one of us lives in a 360.
mm-hmm,
If you stand up and turn around slowly, look at all the things that you see from
mm-hmm,
different perspectives, from different angles. And that's really what I love also about both of our
mm-hmm,
development and people that are in the same situation of having a lot of different experiences in different arenas. It becomes so much easier to allow for other perspectives. What if I looked at it this way instead of this way?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that is a choice. And
Exactly.
that's the biggest thing that has to be or could be conveyed is your choice which way you look.
Mhm.
It's not a forced look. It's like I choose to feel or I choose. And that's what most humans don't realize they're choosing.
Mhm.
They just think it is. But
Well,
when you,
right.
yeah,
And that's very true. And I also believe that sometimes we choose to make a change because we really don't like the situation that we're in, right? The dissatisfaction of that is a huge persuader.
it's a huge persuader, a motivator, and sometimes the only choice.
Right.
But when it has to almost get that serious for a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
before they say, okay, I have to stop this.
Mm-hmm.
This is not supporting me. This is not love centered. This is not taking anybody anywhere. But
Mm-hmm.
again, that requires reflection and thought.
Yes. Yes, it does. And that brings me to ask you about self care,
Ah,
right? Because I think that, I mean, there are different interpretations of everything. And there's a commercialized version of self care, and there's self care that's actually effective and useful. And
what's the commercialized?
well, if you're just looking to make yourself look better on the outside,
Oh,
right?
oh,
You
okay.
know, it's nice to go for the manicure and have somebody take care of
And
you.
that would be self care, giving yourself little treats like that.
Exactly. And there's absolutely a lot of value in that.
Right,
Self care goes deeper than that.
Right, right, right.
And so, in your experience with self care, and what's your go to?
I'm so fluid. It really changes depending on where my thinking is at. So, for example, I would much rather work on you than me. I would much rather work on anybody else. I don't find myself that interesting. You know, when I put myself on the machine, I go, okay, okay. So I have
But
to
this is
really,
so funny because I think you're highly interesting.
I'm happy to hear that. But for myself, I'm not. It's like, oh, is that like I look at the machine, I go, oh, toxic lymphatics. Is that all you got? You know? So I go next, next, next. And the very interesting thing is, for 2 years, this machine told me my lymphatic system was congested, and I didn't pay attention. It's because I don't self care enough and put myself at the top of my list and make sure I'm handled. So what do I end up with? Non Hodgkin's lymphoma, you know? And luckily, it was a malt lymphoma B cell, very, very rare and not fast growing or anything. But my machine was telling me it doesn't diagnose, but it was like going, hey, hey. And I'm going, not interesting. So self care for me is accepting what I need to work on at that time. So, what do I do now for self care in my lymphatic system? I've got the vibrating plate on low for 2 minutes because of something else. And then I've got lymphatic massage, dry brushing, special whatever. So whatever I'm working on, it's still work, you know, but it's my self-care routine. And then also I'm working on other things physically. So my self-care is really addressing the things in my body that need some time and attention.
Mhm.
So yes, I know meditation and I know stretching and I do those things. But my self-care is really taking care of what my body needs. So it's a little different than self-care.
But it is self care, and I
It
believe
is.
that exactly. And it's a part of self care that you are taking responsibility for
Mhm.
and not just handing some of these things off to somebody else.
Right. And I went to doctors and I get the information and this and that, but until you become compliant and enable yourself to do some of the work yourself and not just take the pills or not just, whatever.
Well, it's
So,
beautiful to, take the pills in partnership, right?
yeah, when I
But
said just, I mean, if I just only do what the doctor tells me, it's not enough.
right.
I
And
do
by
what he
doing that,
says, but then I have to add to it my participation.
right. And it's like East meets West,
Yep.
right? Yep.
Yep.
And because the inner work is just as, if not more important than the outer work and what you can do physically.
And it's not easy for me to be the most grounded person on the planet because I just love all the careers I have and I love doing them. But do I love taking the time every single day to just stretch or do yoga or pick a 20-minute session? I do love the breathing work I do. But sometimes I don't always love to just stop everything and meditate or stop my work from the computer or the systems I'm working. Every hour get away for 15 minutes. I'm in.
Mhm.
So my self-care is trying to grow that groundedness part of me into a better balance with all the excitement I love with all the work I do.
Well, and I just love it that you talk about work being exciting because I think it's the same, and I love all the work that I'm doing, and I think that it doesn't feel like work, right? And
No,
no,
that's the problem. We just want to do it more and more and more. Where's
I
our self care? Where's the 2 hours I spent today on just me? It's a challenge, this self care.
yes, it is. It is. It is. And so I'm developing
What are
a
you developing for self care?
oh, well, what's fascinating is that, I put that children's calendar together to
Uh
teach
huh.
children about the importance of intention and think
Mm,
intention, and your mind is like a garden, and what thought seeds are you planting, and the power of I am and being intentional, right? With
mm-hmm.
your
Mm-hmm.
time, today I am bold, or today I am courageous, or today I'm silly, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
and just to get kids in the practice of doing this,
Mm-hmm.
and
I
I
like that.
also have a little video that teaches them about the vagus nerve and the importance of the breath work, and I know that
Mm-hmm.
you are a fan of the vagus nerve as well,
Oh,
and the breath work, and
yeah,
it's just like,
yeah.
oh my gosh. And so right now I'm developing the older kids and adult version of that as a web application. And
Ah,
I know, which is so fun, right? And so
nice.
I'll be looking for beta testers soon.
How old? How old?
I'm thinking because it would be a web application that will become an app. It's on the phone and or on your computer. And so, I'm thinking the calendar is good for kids up to age 7, 8 maybe, but after that it's really more of an interaction. And,
Right.
today
Okay.
today I am, and
Mm-hmm.
also what my intentions are, what my priorities are. And
Introducing that to humans, kids, at an early age gets a whole different perspective on thoughts and what you're creating and what you're intending instead of going through life reacting.
well, and what's fascinating is the research. There's research out there that shows that the average lifespan of an emotion is 90 seconds or less. And we can actually learn a lot in 90 seconds. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, absolutely feel it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do we have to feel it for 2 days? Right? Do we have
Yeah.
to keep that going? Right?
Right. Right. Right.
And then when we go back to the energy and the energetic scale, and we want to be broadcasting higher energies of satisfaction and joy and enthusiasm and accomplishment and
Mm-hmm.
adventure and all of these things. I mean, because I believe life is supposed to be fun, and
It can be.
it can be, and not every second is going to be fun. There's you know
Yeah.
a
Growth has
positive
to
and a
happen.
negative to everything, right? Because we are electromagnetic and all of that, and that's for another day. But what's fascinating is when we put all of these things together, it can be a fun adventure,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's a different way of looking at life and ourselves and our
hmm
spirit and our souls, and it's just different. But
right?
it's a very positive, and
Yes,
at least it's going to move forward instead of sideways or backwards.
right. That's right. Hey, I want people to learn as to where they can find you.
Well, I am unfindable about a month. I'm incognito. I'll be back in Manhattan in about a month, and they can find me through my phone. They can call me. They can email me, and you'll put up that information, or do you want me to say it?
I would love you to say it, and I'm actually also going to put it up
Oh, all right.
because some people will see this
And
on
not every
video,
sense will
and
for your
and
time.
and some and some will just hear the audio.
Okay. All right. So my phone number 917-579-3050. Again, that is 917-579-3050. And my email that you can reach me at is jeanworth9@gmail.com. All lowercase and the number 9.
Okay,
jeanworth9@gmail.com.
good.
Feel free. Oh, all right.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And thanks so much for your time here today. I just love
Oh,
spending time with you.
oh, and I love spending time with you. And we'll meet in the middle.
Oh, we'll meet in the middle, and we're going to have a sequel. We're going to have an update on that
Oh,
hand reading, which
oh,
is
the
going to
hand.
be,
Yes, I want to look at. We're going to take another print or photograph,
yeah,
and then we'll put them side by side and just dive in.
it'll be fun, right?
And then you can reflect upon the changes you made from the meeting till today,
Right.
and how it changed the shape and the lines,
hmm
because it all changes. My dad, when he was 83 years old, they gave him his last reading. And I'd started at I think when he was in his 60s, yeah, or 70s, I don't know. But anyway, so all the lines underneath his pinky had changed in his finger of communication, and I kept saying, "Dad, Dad, what have you been doing? So many things have grown and have appeared." And he was in his 80s, so he never stopped growing. My mom kept saying, Norm, tell her, Norm. And he basically talked about his life and challenges that he had to face and things that were hard for him. And he was now in a space in life. He had 10 children, but he's now retired. He can now think about life and himself and the things that drove him. And so that's what he was doing. He was doing a lot of reflecting and growing and embracing and understanding. So that happens at every age.
Yeah.
And so that was really a lovely, lovely reading he gave me.
Yeah. Oh, how fun is that?
Yep.
Yep. Just
It's
beautiful.
never too late. That's the message.
Right. Well, yes, because we grow until we grow until we transition, and then
it starts
the next thing
in a different way. So get it right. There's no right, but you know what I mean. But there he was, an 80-year-old gentleman who was reflecting for the first time in his life.
Yeah.
And it showed up in his hands with all the thinking he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So release emotions, release everything. It's just good for you, good for the soul.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thanks again very much.
You are very welcome, Missy, and it's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to talk to you on or offline.
Okay, here we go. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining in today on the You've Got Nurse Series podcast. I appreciate your time, as our time is our most precious commodity. We never get the time back. Using our time intentionally and with purpose makes a difference. Kindly like and share if you find this content helpful. I invite you to explore a bit more of the work, which you can find on my websites of you'vegotnurse.org and theartofselfcraftsmanship.org. It will be my pleasure to hear from you with any questions you may have. Take good care of you and your ultimate mind diet in the meantime.